Hi, Jason. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm really good. I'm excited to talk to you. I had to reschedule it once, and I was like, oh, I got to get it now because I've been excited to watch the movie as well to get that behind me. But I also already knew your work because my two daughters watched The Vampire Diaries.
Yes, yes.
So and they were in middle school to high school, but they watch them. They still watch them. I went to our stations in Georgia, and I went to Covington, which is where the Mystic Grill and the clock tower and everything is, and had to get them souvenirs and yeah, they're all the whole thing. So I
That's
I remember Derek, and my daughters will both be excited that I spoke to you. But I didn't know you had quite the IMDb going on. I was looking through all the other ones because you've been on NCIS Los Angeles and Criminal Minds, Castle, some of my favorite shows. And I really like Vampire Diaries. I think it's very well written, actually.
that
Um,
was, what's funny about that is that was my first, like, I say, quote unquote, real job.
oh
Um,
wow,
I had done a bunch of smaller stuff, and that was like the first, like, I mean, it's a big show, huge show,
yeah,
big budget, and it was so cool. And I remember actually, my favorite person I got to interact with was Joseph Morgan, who played Klaus. He was so cool. I mean, he was so cool, and he was a phenomenal actor. I remember I
he's
had to be,
believable. I mean,
I
you
had,
really are
oh my
afraid of him.
gosh. Well, so I'm supposed to be, at one point, you watched it, I
Yes.
died, right? They ate me. And so I'm supposed to be laying on the ground in the woods. And so we did like a little rehearsal of the scene where, like, Klaus kind of, he gets mad or whatever. And it was like, whatever, cool. And at this point, this is like I'm just starting out, so I'm also like studying and learning, right?
Right.
And then we go to shoot the scene, and I'm chilling in the dirt, and he's doing the scene, and all of a sudden he gets to a point, and he just blows up, and it was so real. It scared me, and I like jumped, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!"
I'm
Did I
supposed
just
to be
like
dead,
ruin?
but yep,
Did I
you
just
jump.
ruin this scene? And I didn't. No one said anything. I was like, "Please don't say anything. Please don't say anything." But he was so good. He was so cool and so down to earth. Like, and that was really before he really like hit it. Before they did the spinoff and
Before
everything.
and that, what, the spinoff is really good too. They started watching that one. He was, I think, and the reason I think it was successful is because of mainly him and the one that plays Elijah. I mean, both
Oh
of
yeah.
them are so powerful and believable, and Joseph Morgan is as much as when he can come off very charming and he's got that smile, but then when he's
Mhm.
angry, he really can
Mhm.
be terrifying. So I thought, yeah,
Yeah.
he's got a very wide range, so that's something to definitely be able to absorb having around you. But what a cool start to your career, just
Right.
kick it off with that. And I saw you were in The Shunning. I mean, it says uncredited, but apparently you were there.
That
Um,
was when I first. I mean, that was during what I call my free internship, where I was like, you know what? I was like 24, 25, and I was like, I want to tell stories. I want to be an actor. I want to be a part of stories that impact people.
right.
And so I was going all over the southeast, and I had a sleeping bag in the back of my car, and I would do any job. I didn't care.
Oh yeah.
And so they were like, I auditioned for The Shunning. They're like, you didn't get it. They're like, they want you to be like a featured extra. And I was like, listen, I've done that. I'm not really interested in being an extra. Nothing against it, not for me.
Right.
And they were like, no, it's like it's featured. I was like, okay. So I got to go, and it turns out I was like this dude's like brother, and Burgess Jenkins, who was the male lead in that film.
Yeah.
And I got to like be his brother because I looked like him. And so they put like an Amish beard on me, and I got to watch him work, and I got to be right up there and hear the conversations between the director and Burgess, and the female lead was really good too. And so that was my film school. Like, that's how I learned this stuff, by just trying to be on sets and making my own stuff. But yeah, I had a sick Amish beard.
Hey, I'm a film nerd, so like when my kids and I go to Comic Con every year and I shamelessly use my press pass, And my kids, my one daughter and I watched The Walking Dead, so we had several people from The Walking Dead. That Merle, he can come up pretty scary too. But we got to meet him, and the guy who played Herschel, Scott Wilson. It was right before he passed away that he was at Comic-Con, and my daughter dressed up as a zombie. We did the makeup and the contacts, the whole thing. And he not only wanted his picture with her, but he wanted to pretend to let her bite him. So like, and it was just like so cool. So we have a picture of my daughter, like biting, did not bite him, but like pretending to bite his cheek. And
so
like, it was so when
I quit doing commercials a few years back just because it's kind of a rat race. And I mean, I'll do them, I'm sure, eventually again. But I ended up doing one with Zack Snyder because he was doing like a cancer PSA.
See, the nerd just woke up.
Like, do you want to be like loved? It's like you didn't get the part, but like, do you want to be like, background? And I was like, to watch Zack Snyder, yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And it turned out it was like, once again, I was kind of near the front, and I got to watch like who I think is one of the most visually stunning directors of our time work, and it was super simple. It was so, and this was while I was getting ready to shoot my film. And so it was really kind of cool for me to see this guy who does all this fancy stuff. And it's like, oh, but it's still rooted in the fundamentals. And he was like, he had the camera, he was operating. It was just really cool.
Hey, if you want to know how good he is, if you don't know who Zack Snyder is, watch the original Batman versus Superman, and then watch the Justice League, and then watch Zack Snyder's cut. It's above. Like he's incredible regardless. And this is so cool that this film, I was glad to see that you're kind of walking out of, using situations like that, and now being a director yourself. And this film, we got to talk about it, A Father's Legacy. That's why we're here. Although I had to fan out for a second because I'm a film nerd, and you're speaking my language, so I had to go fangirl on you for a second. But so I'm really curious obviously I can see why you were just by being around all this, why you'd want to be a director. But can you kind of just give us a little background of like how this came to be? How A Father's Legacy, I know it's a fictional story, but there's some real background to it. So if you can kind of tell people about that.
Yeah, I mean, so this movie really does come from one of the, if not the toughest point of my life so far, was when my father passed away. And he passed away unexpectedly. And I remember as a family, we were able to say goodbye and be there when he passed, which I'm so thankful for. But I remember standing outside of the hospital room, talking to the ICU nurse, and I was just like, I feel like my DNA is like shifting.
Yeah.
And like it's changing. And it was this, is this before after moment. There was when my father was here, and then when he wasn't. And I was already living in Los Angeles at the time, and I'm from South Carolina, so it's not like my day-to-day was really impacted at all. I just literally, I couldn't call one person. But that one person was one of my earthly guardians, who I knew that even though my dad he was not perfect, and he probably would have preferred that I be a banker or something like that. But, because I do have a degree in finance. So he's like, why don't you go get a job here, And it's like,
I think most actors' parents feel like they should do something else.
Yeah. But I knew that he supported me, and that no matter what I called him, he would do whatever he could, to help and support me. And some of the coolest stories that I kind of heard after he passed is I had multiple people tell me, it's like, hey, when you were on that episode of so-and-so, your dad was really talking about it a lot. And that means a lot, because it's like, we don't see that,
Yeah.
It's like, we don't see what goes on behind the scenes. And so it's like those, those people sharing that with me, really meant a lot for me. But after he passed, it kind of really coincided where I was in my career, that I knew that the next step for me is I wanted to direct a feature. And Empassing impacted me so much that it was like, I found myself exploring that father-son relationship. And why did it mean so much to me? Because even like father-son movies or stories and other stuff, it always resonated with me.
Yeah.
And so I really dove into like, what is a father to a son? What is a son to a father? And like that root, that foundation is what a father's legacy is built on. And the story itself is fictional, but like those themes of, a legacy and positively impacting someone. We take this young guy, Nick, who I play, and he never had anyone really teach him like, yo, you need to slow down and think about what you're doing, because there's consequences for our actions.
Right.
It's not just you in this. There's people around you, and there's people that you love that are around you
that it's going to resonate.
The things that you do and say. And that was a big theme of being like, how can we impact those around us positively? What are we leaving behind when we're gone? And what does that look like? And then, there is that faith element in there of, I definitely resonate with the male side of it, because, that's who I am. But like, shame kills men. And we make these mistakes and these stumbles along the way, and we feel like we can't talk about them.
Like you can't come back from it.
Yeah, and it's like, and for me, growing up in the South, I do feel like there was a little bit of kind of like a cultural thing of like, well, you don't want to be like sensitive.
Yeah.
You don't want to express like too many emotions or certain kinds of emotions, because it might be perceived as weakness, right?
Right.
And it was this kind of this unspoken thing, and as I get older, I'm like, that's the opposite. It's totally okay to own your mistakes, to be vulnerable, to be honest with those around you, and to own up to it. Obviously, there are consequences for our actions, but like, that's going to make us, it's going to make me a better man. It's going to make me a better husband and a better friend. And that's one of like the big themes in this movie is like, don't punish ourselves. Don't suffer with this shame. Like, we are redeemable. We are loved.
For me, the film was about, it felt like it was about being authentic with other people and yourself. And I think if you don't, you have this huge disconnect with your faith, with your family and your friends. I think social media, and I'm sure especially being involved in movies, you've got a lot of experience with that. The social media just makes people put up a front that they're somebody they're not, because they're afraid to let anybody see that I stumbled one day, or because people crucify you over very small things. And I think people would rather put out a picture that has not a lot of filters and airbrushing, and they want people to see that. They really don't want people to see them physically or any other way. They just, and it's hard. And I love this story because I think, see, I didn't have a good relationship with my dad. He was kind of in and out, and I probably haven't spoke to him in about 12 years. I mean, he just disappeared a lot, and it just kind of, he picked it up and when he wanted to, and no matter how upset and how hurt I got, like, I still long for that. I still long for that connection with my father and parent. I mean, me being a parent, and my 3 kids are in their mid to late 20s, and that's so big to me now. As I love there's so many layers to parent-child relationships, and I think this explored it so well and different. It was a different father and son movie, and I think there's a lot of ways that people are going to relate to the characters. So Tobin Bell. So how did he get involved in the? I'm curious to see how that came about.
I love Tobin. I love Tobin, and this role was meant for him. And I'm not saying I sat here and I wrote it for him, but they're really, like, looking back on it, there was no one else that would have done what he did. And I can't imagine it. So I ended up getting a casting director, Matthew Seepick, which was one of the best decisions that I kind of stumbled upon. And, you know, we went out to a lot of agencies and stuff in LA, and we're like, hey, who's going to be interested? Because, you know, we're not working with a huge budget here. You know, this is a passion project, and we're going to be shooting in small town South Carolina. You know, yeah, it's just like, it's not a payday. And so we got a list of who might be interested, and we saw that Tobin was on there, and immediately I kind of gravitated towards that. I watched some more of his stuff, because we know him as from a $1 billion horror franchise.
Jigsaw. Yeah.
We know him as Jigsaw, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And,
a little different. And you know what? I'm sure he gets typecast in that way. I have a friend of mine that directs horror movies, and he kept trying to get into faith films and do romance dramas, and no one will hire him because that's what he's done. But he's so multifaceted, and just like Tobin, I was like, it was such a funny thing to see him in this role, like, but he was amazing. He's incredible. You guys played off each other very well.
So good. I mean, we sat, first time I met him, we met at like a little cafe, and I knew it wasn't a matter of me figuring out if he was going to be, you know, if I wasn't giving him approval. It was him of being like, am I going to trust this guy who's directing his first feature, who's also acting and directing? And there was something about the story that resonated with him personally and some experiences he had. And it was also really different. And he came, and I'll tell you, he came to work. He showed up every day and put everything he had into this. He is legitimately a true craftsman. I mean, he didn't mail anything. He wanted every step of the way, he wanted to make it the best he could. And I mean, I'm so excited for people to see him because it's so different than what he's known for. But he's got this weight, this gravitas in his voice, and then you see his face, and it's like, here's a man who has lived a life, you know? And it's like, you can't fake that.
Right.
You know what I mean? I can't hire a 70-year-old actor who looks 55.
Right, exactly.
Like, I need someone who's worn, who looks like they've carried a burden on their shoulders for their entire life. And he was so good. I can't say enough.
It's kind of like he just had, I mean, I would say like Joseph Morgan, he just, like when he comes on screen, there's a presence that you just sit up and notice mentally. I mean, he's right in your face. As soon as he's talking or you're looking at him, he's just very powerful as an actor. The filming, so the location was really neat. So how did you end up at the location where you filmed?
So you made a comment a few minutes ago about like the film was very authentic.
Yes.
In a lot of ways, it presented some themes. We shot that at my family's pond house.
Oh, that's amazing.
So it's like there's, you know, like where my father spent a lot of time and loved being, where my family has spent time, like that's where we shot it. So when you talk about authentic, like I went back to my hometown to make this.
That's beautiful.
Like, this film did not have a choice but to be authentic. I mean, from the people that brought food for the cast and crew, the people that donated their vehicles for us to use like for and in the production. I mean, there was so much love and support surrounding this that like there's no way there could be a fake bone in this film's body.
Yeah.
Just the way it was created. I mean, and walking on the grounds. I mean, you hear like productions be like when they can shoot on location, especially in like kind of sacred spots, like you can feel a presence, and it's like that's what this was. This was a real place, you know. And there's something about it, but and credit to our director of photography, John Carrington, because I mean he shot it incredibly.
Yeah,
and we shot beautiful. This thing in 15 days.
Wow.
We were moving, and John did such a great job. I mean, we just shot the mess out of that house and that property, and I think it looks so beautiful.
It does. You know what? It kind of was like a river runs through it, or you know, one of those kind of like it's a perfect environment for you to have these like, you know, life deep discussions, and
Mm-hmm.
it does. You know what I love about it is it has all these deep emotional elements to it and faith, and I thought that was another authentic aspect of it is it doesn't come across as a typical faith film where it's just, you know, kind of in your face about faith. It's a natural integration of the
Mm-hmm.
story, and I'm curious to see how that how we were, you know, if that was intentional for you. Is that something you sought out to do?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, yes. My whole thing is I want to be real, and I want it to be grounded. And I know a lot of movies and kind of inspirational faith genre, I feel like sometimes get it a little bit reversed, and the message is more important than the story.
Right.
Which to me, you know, I try to be a storyteller first, because that's what's going to impact people and draw people in.
That's what Jesus did. Parables. That's how he got people to relate.
Right?
He got people to relate to him. He talked to a farmer. He talked about sowing and reaping.
Mm-hmm.
Talked to a financial person. He talked about the investment of the talents. You know, and so yeah, it's storytelling. That's how what grabs people is the story, and even us as people, like watching the story of somebody's life and how they live it. That's what not what they tell us. It's watching them live it out is what impacts us. And same with movies. It's like, you know, those that you can integrate the faith message and get that across so much better if that's not a neon sign that keeps flashing in their eyes every time somebody's on the screen. They say the word God every 5 seconds.
And I just wanted it to be like,
let it be like a real person, real life conversation.
Like the movie opens with someone who's literally like, I don't even know if you're listening.
Right.
And it's like, who hasn't felt that way in our relationship with God or whatever your higher power is? Like, who hasn't felt like,
abandoned?
I feel like there is someone out there, but like, do I matter to them? And are they even listening?
Yeah.
And it's like, to me, it's like, that's real.
Yeah.
And that's what I know. And I wanted, and I feel like more people are going to be able to relate to that than someone who's like, you know, carry around a Bible 24/7 and has like, you know, they pray for like an hour and 27 minutes every day, and they're like, they're perceived to be perfect. I'm like, that's not us. I wanted these guys, like, this is, to me, you could meet either one of these guys in the hardware store, and this is how they would talk. This is how they would walk.
Right.
Like, to me, these are very, very real characters, and I think, like, hopefully that's going to allow, like, a door for people to be able to relate to and be like, you know what, I see some of myself in that, and I relate with that, and here's the positive things I can get out of it.
So, how can people get more info on the film and be able to see the film?
For sure. So, first and foremost, June 17th, 7 p.m. across the country. We are going to be in like 700 and some theaters. We're doing a Fathom Events theatrical release. And so they can find out locations at fathomevents.com and see it on the big screen, which is, I'm like geeking out over, because I did not imagine that my film was going to be on the big screen.
Especially with COVID. Yeah,
right? So it's like, I'm in, and I will be in the theater to see it with a crowd.
And support these films in the theaters, because the theaters are hurting, you know, artists are hurting, directors, cast, crew. I mean, everybody in the entertainment business is hurting, including the venues that house them. It's, you know, support them, buy the tickets, and download the movie when it comes out, like all of that.
Yeah. And people can follow Father's Legacy. They can follow it on Instagram and Facebook. And for me, it's funny, we were talking about social media earlier. I'm living that 90s life, so all I have is a website. So you can go to imjasonmack.com, and I post updates there, and you can, you know, feel free to contact me through the website. But I'm living that 90s life.
There's nothing wrong with that. It's talking about authentic. It's a lot more authentic than living the millennium type thing. I've got a millennial that's one of my youngest, and it was a very different thing. My older daughter, she's only 2.5 years older than her, but She said, I'm telling you, Mom, there's something. When she came in as a freshman, she said, there's something about this crowd of kids coming behind me. It's different. And I didn't believe her. And but I thought 2 years in grades, whatever. But it was like a whole other thing because a lot happened in 2 years for them. But yeah, it really is. It's a big impact. So what, I see that on IMDb, you got some other stuff going on. So what's next for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know exactly what is next for me. It's been really, the coolest part of right now is I've been living with this project for like 4 years. And in a couple weeks when it comes out, it's finally going to go from being mine to being everyone who sees it and what they get from it. And that's going to be a really cool experience for me. But what's next? I'm reading some scripts. I'm developing some stories myself and really just trying to figure out what is next. What do I want to say? And then what do I want to spend the next few years trying to say? And making sure that I really believe in it because it's a long haul. It's easy to look at like, oh, the release is coming out. You can be in a bunch of theaters. That's so cool. And I'm like, yeah, there's like 4 years before this. So,
it's a long process, and even if there was no COVID going on, the process is long. The budgeting, the planning, the table reads. I mean, it's a lot. I've actually got an IMDb page, by the way. I did two producing. I produced on 2 movies. One is coming out in the fall. It's a suspense movie called Blame. I did a movie with a friend that's called The Rocket. That's kind of a faith film that's kind of like a Chariots of Fire Rocky story. It's about a cross country runner, and it's a real story. And then a friend of mine got married, and they told the story of their real life, their like courting and all that. He was a farmer from Georgia, and she was a New York actor, and they met on a film, and it's a really funny and sweet story. But she did. It's called The Farmer and the Belle, and then I got to do some contributing writing on that. So I got to follow the process, and I was overwhelmed at everything it takes. And so I'm proud for you because I know how hard it is to get here. And especially you had COVID fighting you, and you're going to have that in theaters. I mean, what great timing that theaters are open back up and people can actually go see it. And something like this, I mean, I didn't see it on the big screen. I saw it on my big screen monitor. But it's one of those things where I definitely am going to go see it in the theater too, because the scenery and everything, I think it'll be so much more powerful in the theater. So go see it. And the release is what date again? June 17th. So just in time, 3 days before Father's Day. So it's like perfect timing for everything. And go see this movie, support it, and go to I'mJasonMack.com. So you can follow up with everything that he's got going on. I'm so grateful to talk to you. Like I said, I'm a film nut. I love working behind the scenes, and I really, really thoroughly enjoyed the movie. It was a beautiful story, and on so many levels I could relate to different things both you and Tobin were saying at times, and it's a really incredible film. Everybody go see it. It is worth every dollar that you pay for your ticket. I thank you for your time, because I know that's precious when it's all about the next job. It's all about the next the next story you write or the next film that you do. And I know it's a really hard time right now, especially for that. So thank you for taking the time to talk to us.
Well, thank you so much. And thanks for taking a moment to talk to me.